So, hi everybody. If we have not met, my name is Michelle Sanchez. I am currently a senior cloud solution architect at Microsoft. I'm 28 years old now. My birthday was yesterday. I am a first generation American and I have been doing Power Platform for the last 5 years. I started as an intern and now I'm doing it behind the scenes at Microsoft. So there's a QR code there for a blog post that got written before I ever joined Microsoft. Just sheer coincidence, but if you want to learn more about that, thanks, Jamie. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Maron. So, what are we talking about today? We are talking about Figma. So Microsoft calls this Power Apps Express Design. Okay, so Power Apps Express Designs, there are two kinds. The first one is image to Power Apps. So if you have ever drawn on a whiteboard what your app should look like, or someone has drawn out their ideas for you, that would be image to Power Apps. You just draw it out anywhere, whiteboard, paper, take a picture, upload it to Power Apps, and it'll convert it into an app from there. And then the second type is Figma design into a Power App. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I am a little bit biased. I love Figma. I've been using it since I was an intern because my boss was she was a UX designer, and so she showed me that, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So I love this integration. One thing I want to cover before we start getting into demo time is what's supported and what's not really supported at this point, because this functionality is in preview today. So some of the highlights of what's supported: containers, forms, the data cards within forms, buttons, labels, text, choice fields, time fields, and slider rating, things like that. So most of our primary functionality does work with Figma, which is great. For us, in the purposes of our demo today, some limitations that there are some missing controls still. Charts are missing, galleries, icons, shapes, tables. So you can draw some things in Figma right now, and they'll just come on over as an image. So it's just something to be aware of. And then if you are a designer who is primarily designing and not a developer, and you want to bring those over, one of the workarounds people have used for this is if they have a gallery, they'll just draw it in Figma and put it in there, and then when it imports into the Canvas app, it will convert to an image, and then you just let your developer know, hey, this is meant to be a gallery, and then they'll switch whatever they need to. And then the other one is Figma currently does not have the ability to update existing apps, so it's very much design your app and then import it into a brand new Canvas app. So right now there's no functionality without overwriting some of the logic, which hopefully we'll get there one day because that'll be really cool. And one workaround that I thought about for this would be if you create like a new screen or something that needs to go into an existing app, you can always create it in Figma, import it into a brand new Canvas app, and then just copy and paste that screen over. It's not perfect, but it works, at least for now. So it's just something to be aware of. And now we can get into the fun stuff, which is demo time. So let me escape out of that. And now you should be seeing my Power Apps screen. And you are all probably familiar with this, but for Canvas apps, we just go into Create, and then we'll have these two options here, the image, which is what we talked about earlier, and then the Figma preview. So if we click this, you'll notice you have some things to fill out here. We'll get to that in a little bit. We're actually going to start from the Figma side to bring that on over. So I already have a Figma account here that I created, and then Microsoft has published this UI kit for Power Apps. So you can kind of see it here. It's kind of high level, and then you see some notes about it right here. I'll put these links in the chat afterwards. Quickest way to get started, you just hit get a copy. And then what that'll do is it'll open up a new tab, and then this will be your Figma design. So it'll load on in. And then we'll hide that pop-up. And so this is the Figma design interface. It's actually very similar to how Canvas apps is. We have our left-hand pane with all of the layers, which is our different controls on the screen. These are pages right here, so you can see if I navigate through here, you'll get different pages that are out of the box with this, this kit. And then if you go under here, underneath this little line, you'll see the components of each page. So you can kind of see each thing getting highlighted here as I click, and then you can open up. So it's very much like Canvas apps, actually. And then and then we also have assets on the left-hand side, which again, very similar to Canvas apps. It's almost like component libraries where you have these reusable pieces that you can kind of drag and drop onto your center pane here. We'll show that in a little bit. I do want to talk about on this right-hand side, it's essentially the properties pane in Canvas apps. So you have your different colors, and as you click on different things, you'll have these different options here, the XY values, the width, different things like that. So it's almost identical. Up here, up top, you have of course, your files, and then different pointers and things like that. Mostly for Power Apps designs, you're going to be dragging and dropping a lot and adjusting on the properties pane, so you don't necessarily need to worry about it right now. And so that is kind of the walkthrough of these different pages. One thing I wanted to point out, if you have the time, I would definitely go in here and do like the read this first, and you can kind of step through what we're going to talk about today. For us, we are just going to get started, and we are going to create a new page because we're going to start a design. So I'm going to hit the plus icon up here. We'll see a new page. We'll call this UI Kit Demo. And then same as Power Apps, I'm actually going to drag it to the bottom just so I can find it easily. And right now there's nothing here. I'm going to want to come over to my assets, like my components, and then I'm going to want to pick what I want. We have phone or tablet, just like Canvas apps. I'm going to go tablet, and then you have these options here of different things to select. Of course, we need a screen before we can go any further, so we're going to drag this on over. So this is our Canvas app screen here. Number one rule for these is you're always going to have to detach these screens, and they'll put little notes here to kind of remind you. So we just right click, and then we just scroll on down and then do detach. And what that does is it kind of separates it from like the original version of it, so you can make modifications to it. And then we don't need this label right here. As you can see, I can drag it, move it around. I'm just going to delete it because we don't need it. And just to pop back over to the layers, you can see we have a tablet here. So this is our screen. So this is our screen one. And now we can start adding things to it. So like most Canvas apps, I'm going to add a label just up top, just so we can name this. So we can say UI Kit Demo App. And then I'm actually going to drag it. I can grab it. And I'm going to drag it up here, widen that just like I would in Canvas apps. And I can change any colors if I really want to. So I can change the title to purple. And the next part of this is you can drag these different things here. Your buttons, you could drag to the screen and move it around as needed. However, if you want to make a form, you're going to need to go into the scrollable section. So you have two different options here. You can do a container, which will help it kind of package everything together, or we use a form. So I like to use forms when I can, and it just pops right in here. I drag it in. And then same thing, detach, and then this one has a note of place only data cards component, so it's a little bit different. On this left-hand side, you see all of our typical controls, but then you see data cards down here at the bottom, horizontal and vertical. Those are our forms, whether the label's on the left-hand side or whether the label for the question is above. And you'll see that in a second. So we'll detach this first. We're going to delete this label that's on the inside. We're just going to delete everything in here. And then we're going to come on down to the horizontal. Actually, let's do vertical, vertical data cards. And so we can start with a header, drag and drop, and we can call this about you questions. And let's play with this right-hand property pane. You can actually switch this. Right now you can see the white to this section doesn't go all the way across. So all I want to do is just switch this from fill to, you can switch it to hug contents or fill container. Actually, I think that is filling the container. So let's try deleting that. I can get in there. We'll delete that. We'll go to vertical or horizontal. So we'll do horizontal, drag and drop, and then we'll switch that to fill container. And so what that'll do is it'll just take up all the space that it can take, and then we'll just keep going there. We can do different text drop downs here. So if I wanted to add that there, if I wanted to add a date picker, I can just drag and drop. It's very simple. Honestly, once you get used to the new interface in Figma, it's a lot easier, but it does take some time to get used to, especially if you're coming in and out of Canvas apps. If we come over to layers, you can see that things are still getting added here. And we can actually highlight multiple things at once. And we can change properties all at the same time. So we can do fill container for all of those. Labels, we can just double click in there. You can double click on the actual interface here, or you can navigate through here as well. I'm a double clicker, but if we do name here, and then we do today's date, and then we can do what's your favorite Power Platform? And then we can just double click into these and add as many as we want. So we can do Power Apps, we can do Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, Power BI, of course, and then Power Pages. And then we can just leave that as is. You can see the different options there. And we can add a button too, since we'll need a way to submit our form. So what I typically do when I'm working inside of Canvas apps is I'll add a data card at the bottom of forms, and then I'll put a button inside of that, just because it keeps everything aligned if I end up adding more to the screen. So what I'll do is I will actually cheat a little bit, and I will come over to this header, and I'm going to copy it, which I'll just do Control C, and then I'll just do Control V right on the bottom. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this string label. So I keep the data card there. And then I'm going to add a button onto that. So I will just drag this. Nope. Looks like I don't even need it. So I'll just delete that. So then we have our button here, and then we can hit submit. So if we leave that like that, I'm going to drag this up a little bit. Form. Okay. So from here, we've created a design, pretty simple, pretty basic, drag and dropped everything. And then what we're going to need to do next is get a token so that Power Apps and Figma can talk to each other. So what I'm going to do is I will click on, let's see, out there. Let's open my profile here on the top right hand corner. I have to go back to the other tab. And then what I do is I'll go to settings. And from here I can go to account. And if I scroll down, you can see we have personal access tokens here. This will just basically let Figma and Power Apps talk to each other. So I'll just name it Figma Power Apps UI. I'll just call this one number 3. So I'll hit enter on that. It'll give me a code. You'll only be able to see this code once, so then we'll copy that. And let's go back to Canvas apps. So in Power Apps, it's asking me to name my app, so I'll call it Figma UI Demo. And then my personal access token, I will go ahead and paste that in here. And if you ever forget, it lets you know right here, just go to settings and create a personal access token. And then a link to a Figma page or frame. So we've only created one frame here, which is a screen. You can create multiple screens here, and then it'll bring all of those in, and then you can do it that way. Or you can just copy a single frame. If I want to copy the entire everything multiple screens, what I would do is right click on this page and hit copy link to page. If I wanted to copy just this one screen into an app, I would just right click this, and then it's a little bit hidden. You do copy and paste as, and then you do copy link. So it's a little bit hidden. I typically just go right here. So I'll hit copy link, bring that over to Power Apps, paste that in, make sure it's a tablet, and then hit create. So from here, all I did was design. I haven't touched anything in Canvas apps, and then in theory, Power Apps will take all of that and make it into an app. Which, while this loads, is super useful because if you've ever worked on a Canvas apps and you've had to get requests from, any stakeholders or anything like that that say, hey, can we switch this color a little bit here, and you've already put it all throughout your app, it kind of saves time because then they see what it's supposed to look like in the Figma interface, rather than having to go all throughout your app and change it and double check with them, like if this is the right shade of blue and if this is the right pixel depth for everything. So it kind of lets your stakeholders get a vision for what you're seeing quickly without even having to go into the development. And it also helps break up your time. If you're lucky, if you are blessed enough to have a UX designer on your team, or somebody who's just generally interested in being the design front of everything, it lets them do all of that work ahead of time while you might be working on another project for the development. Or if you're just working on this project, you can start thinking about how more complex logic works. So it's really a time saver, which thank goodness, because thank goodness, because some of these apps are complex over time. So it is, it's fun to be able to focus on one thing at once. Yes, Figma is not a part of Office 365. In my dreams, it's all in the same house. All right, let's see if this loads. And if that doesn't load, I'm gonna duplicate this tab and see if it'll work in another one. Yeah, Adobe did just buy Figma. All right, I'm gonna try UI demo another time and see if this will let us do what we want to do. And from here, copy link. Now it's a race. We'll see who wins. And if neither of those work, I'll give it until 6:29. If that doesn't work, then I might have a video that I can swoop over to, just to kind of show how this piece comes over. What is the typical amount of time? Usually, it's only taken like 10 seconds. I've never seen it actually take this long, but it's because we're on a call and we're doing a demo, so that's okay. And the feature is in preview, so it's not perfect yet. Yeah, demo gods is right. Okay, so I'll just switch over to a little video because I was just recording some of this as I was walking through it. But similar concept, different app. I know it's a little bit blurry, so sorry about that. But and I'll just kind of walk through this. But basically, I did the exact same thing, and then it loads in. Should be able to play it from here. So it just loads in, and then I'll come here. Now I'm glad that I recorded this. So getting things ready on this screen, and then it just kind of wops through it, and then it'll load in ahead of getting started. Okay. I know, as soon as I go back. So it loads in perfectly, and then you see we have the container there. In this version, I put a container instead of just the form because I was curious to see what would pop out. But you can see on the left-hand side a little bit. I know it's blurry. We have the tablet, a container that I put in, and then the form down here. Our buttons here. At this point is when the developer would come in. They would have this, and the only thing that they really need to do is adjust here and there if there are any issues, like this label isn't spanning all the way across, they would fix that. They would adjust so that the scroll bar isn't showing here by just adjusting that data card. Connecting a data source, that would be great in order for us to actually use the form. And then, of course, any submit and clear buttons that we have so that it connects directly to that form. But for the most part, this cut down the visual design of the app by, I would say, like 80%. So it's pretty great. And then that is it. Let's see if these tabs, nope, no tabs. Sorry, everybody. But that is the end of my demo. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. I'm going to put some links in chat. Just a link to the UI kit for Figma. There is also some documentation in there, of course, but there's also a express design feedback form. So whether you're doing the drawing piece or whether you're playing with Figma, if you have any feedback controls you want to see that start to get supported, or any functionality like editing and being able to update existing apps, go ahead and fill out that form. The team who's working on this will definitely be taking a look at it. So the more feedback we get, the more that we can improve the system so that it's more useful for everybody. Cool. And that is the end of my presentation.